Okay, so let's put in an SD card. It's going to prompt you to load, and you don't want to do anything whilst that's loading, particularly pull out the SD card and give it a chance. Now you can see that there are no reverbs currently saved. There's no anything currently saved actually. What we'll do is we'll grab the preset reverb, so preset reverb that we were enjoying, we'll change it. So let's take the pre-delay off. We'll just take it off completely. Yeah, I like that reverb and I want to save it for future use. So save reverb. I can pick what slot. Again, we have the 8 banks of 8. But I want to save it to this particular SD card. Save reverb. Now, it's going to pull up the name of the reverb and then a number to say, oh, you've incremented it once, and we could just call it that, or we could change the name of it through this excruciating method of cursor, or I have a USB keyboard, QWERTY keyboard I should say, attached, so I'm just going to put no delay, and I can do tab and then put the Grand Canyon la 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 reverb no delay, press save, and that saved it onto my SD card. It'll always be there for me to pull up. So my preset reverbs and my user reverbs, and I've got one in there. Same idea for saving a timbre, although I can have multiple libraries on one SD card, and the libraries are a way of for me to store a certain project or something. So let's see what I've got in there at the moment. I've got REXT, I'm not sure what that one is, so that must be it. Okay, that's the sample. Let's pull up a preset and play with it. So let's pull up New Electric and let's add some FM to it. So because this is a blue button, I'm adding FM to the timbre, which just basically means I'm adding it to all of the partials in this case. Crank up a little bit, yeah, that's a bit more growly. So I really like that. That fits in with my set, my gig, whatever I'm doing. I need to save that on my SD card so I don't have to mess around and get that again. So save timbre this time, and it's created a user library for me. I can go in there, the SD card, and I can create folders, and each folder will be a library. But if I haven't done that, it's just going to default to calling it user library 1 for me. Again, 8 banks of 8. I'm just going to be boring and save it there. Save that. New Electric 1. Again, it's added a number to it. It's used the name that was in memory, and I'm going to call it something else. I'm going to just use my keyboard to delete. I'll call it Frog. Awful keyboard to type on that one. New Electric plus FM. That'll remind me, won't it? So then I'm going to save that, and that's saved in slot 1. That's really as simple as it gets. The other thing I can save, I can't save samples, but I can certainly save sessions. And when I save a session, what I'm saving, and I'll demonstrate, is, say, I've got a bunch of them. I'm going to save all of the tracks, all of the timbres on all of the tracks, all of the track settings, whatever MIDI has been assigned, whatever mappings assigned, and the master reverb. I can save all of that in a session. Save session. Now a session hasn't got that bank entry system. It's just alphabetical. So whatever I call this, it's going to save it. And again, there's not different libraries for sessions. There's only one sessions folder in here. Not to say that I can't move sessions into libraries if I want to make them part of that project. I could do some file management. I can type in what this session actually was. 3 nice timbres, or something similar. Save. So then if I call up split, let's call up that split organ strings, it's going to wipe out the session, as it were. And then of course I can record back my session with its 3 tracks, 1, 2, 3. And actually I've got the option to record the studio settings with it or not, and I'll cover that in a second, and then bang, there comes my 3 tracks again. So the studio settings are are mappings for MIDI controllers. So say I wanted to put some different panning on these tracks and have that based off a MIDI controller. I would select one track and then let's go to the panning. This is the panning here for my track, and I can pan, or I can set it to be a MIDI controller by pressing the MIDI link here. Still on pan. If I turn that on to arm, I can now twiddle one of these knobs and it picks up the CC value. So now I'm actually changing the panning position now. This is a continuous rotary controller. It's using a slightly different mode, so it's not really working correctly. So that's fine. I'll change it from relative to absolute. Sorry, I did the wrong thing. So I want to change pan. These are my options, and then I want to change this to be absolute. Press MIDI again. Okay, so now that's working left, right, pan. So now I could set lots of different knobs to control lots of different things, and then on my studio settings here, it's going to list what I've done. Let's do another one really quickly. Let's do track 7. We'll do the volume on this one, and I'm going to use this knob here to change the volume. MIDI settings, same idea. If I double click, I can arm it. It's listened to it. It's a CC value 1. It actually got it that time. Sometimes it guesses correctly that it's an absolute encoder. So there's my volume for that. So that's now in my current, sorry, not the session, it's in the current studio settings, and I can save that. I can either save that as a studio, and again on my SD card there's the bank and slots to save it, or when I save the session will save everything so I don't forget where I'm working. And I can do save session, and we'll call it something else so it puts it in another thing. We'll call it BCD session. Save. Now if I want to, I can recall one. So now I'm in user session, I can recall one, and I can choose to not have the studio recalled, because I've just set this up, and this is good for all the projects. I've just swapped my keyboards or what have you. So when I call that up, the ABC session that we'd saved earlier, I haven't damaged my studio settings. They're still there, but I can clear it. I don't need that now. And sometimes if you're not sure what's going on, maybe you've got a MIDI controller doing something, you've nudged something, so why is that volume gone or something like that. So that's from the home menu, and that's the setup, and that's the studio. So that really covers the library, the basics. There's a few more shortcuts and other things maybe I've skipped over, but that will get you familiar with how to use the tracks and how to save timbres and sessions and so on. And then in later videos we'll talk more about how to really get into the nuts and bolts of this and how to do some sound design, and then you're talking about lifting up the hood and looking at the partials. But we'll save that for the next video. Thanks for watching.